Hey guys, Franz here from AwfulBit, back with the official Steam controller review. I've now had a chance to play with it a little bit. I can compare it against the mouse and keyboard and against the Xbox 360 controller. So, here are my thoughts.
First off, in the unboxing I said that the controller felt a bit flimsy. I have to take that back, because I hadn't yet put the batteries in and didn't get a real feel for the controller in that video. Ergonomically, I found that the natural position my hands were settling in was the thumbs on the trackpads, index fingers on triggers, and the rest of my fingers resting on the back buttons. The joystick wasn't too bad, wasn't too out of the way, but the face buttons, particularly A and X, were only really good for occasional use and could feel a little bit uncomfortable. When you're not using it in a Steam game, the controller functions as a mouse, using the right thumb pad. And this includes when you're inside of non-Steam games like Minecraft. When you're in a Steam game in regular Steam mode, the controller functions as an Xbox 360 controller as far as I could tell. And so the configuration options only really fully function in big picture mode. That's something I think that they should work on, because on my ultra-wide screen, big picture mode doesn't always work out that well, and sometimes the screen gets stretched, and it would be nice if I could have both the controller and my ultra-wide monitor going. So the first game I tried out was The Binding of Isaac, and I chose this game because I normally played it with an Xbox 360 controller, and I wanted to compare the two. On the Xbox 360 controller, the natural position of my fingers was perfect for Binding of Isaac. I could use the left thumb on the thumbstick for fluid motion, and right thumb for the face buttons for quad-directional attacking. And then my index fingers would split duty on the triggers and bumpers for special activations, bombs, and cards. Meanwhile, though, the Steam controller needed some configuration. The default layout was alright, but I ended up using the thumbstick and face buttons more than the trackpads. As I said before, the thumbstick and face buttons are good for occasional use, but not so much for constant use. The right pad especially was strange, since clicking the pad would actually stop you from attacking, and touching the direction you wanted was the correct way to fire. I was able to find a custom configuration that worked better for me, turned up the haptics on the left pad, and switched the right pad to simulate face buttons only on click, and things got a lot better. I tried to get fancy and remap the triggers to act as bumpers, with the back buttons taking over as triggers, but I ended up wasting my own bombs by forgetting which button was which. Overall, this was a game that worked really great with the Steam controller. For the next game, I wanted to try something a little bit more challenging, and so I picked Mount & Blade Warband, which is really only tuned towards using keyboard and mouse. The menu navigation using the Steam controller was fine using just basic mouse emulation, but the overworld camera and movement was very clunky, and I ran into some issues there. Inside combat, though, the combat was alright. The main problem I found, it was much more difficult to specify what type of swing you wanted to use without being able to swing the mouse left and right as you click the button. Giving orders was doable, but very strange, I found. There are just too many buttons in this game for the Steam controller to be a proper replacement. Unsurprising, and I didn't really have to test too far to figure this out, is that the Steam controller is not really suitable for Mount & Blade. And that was a little disappointing, but like I said, nothing shocking there. The last game I wanted to try out was Counter-Strike Go. It seemed like a perfect candidate for a game that needed a controller replacement that could emulate the high precision and speed of mouse and keyboard control. And it seemed to do that pretty well. The left thumb on the thumbstick seemed most natural this time around, and instead of fighting it, I just stuck with it. On the right thumb, the trackpad was great. I had virtually no input delay, there was good acceleration on the swiping, and I was able to do some decently fine aiming. Left trigger for right click and right trigger for left click worked great, but my favorite part was using the back buttons for jump and crouch, which felt really natural for me and a lot of fun. It had been years since I played Counter-Strike regularly, and I felt that I was doing pretty good with the controller, and I was having a ton of fun. It was only when I switched over to keyboard and mouse that I realized I had been working under a handicap the whole time. Now, full disclosure, I do have a gaming mouse and a mechanical keyboard, but they weren't just, a little bit better. They were way, way better than the Steam Control. My round scores immediately doubled after switching, and I had been playing with the controller for a good 2 hours by this point. Still though, I'll probably keep training with the Steam controller to see if I can get anywhere, and for casual shooters, I'd take the Steam controller over any of the other offerings currently available.
Alright, so, my final thoughts. Let's start with the good. The hardware is exactly where you would expect it to be. The trackpads deliver on the precision that was promised, the face buttons are very responsive, the thumbstick does exactly what you need it to. And I absolutely loved the back grip buttons. On the software side, I absolutely loved that at any time you could press the Steam button in the middle of the controller and it would take you to a configuration menu where you could remap any of the inputs on the controller. But that leads us to the bad side. This controller does have a significant learning curve. It can be a little bit finicky to find a configuration that works for you. On the hardware side, the trackpads also take some getting used to, and I found that the face buttons and the thumbstick were very inconvenient for my hands. You might find differently. So, in the end, I'm going to keep using the Steam controller and see where I get with it. If you've got a Steam controller, leave a comment, let me know what you thought. If you haven't got one, let me know if you have any questions. I'll be sure to answer them. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And either way, subscribe, because we've got more coming your way. So once again, this is Franz from AwfulBit. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and we've always got more content on awfulbit.com. Cheers.